Okay, Alex, can you start? Can we start?
I think we're waiting for our host to give us a go ahead
I think on the chat box,
on chat.
he said we can start.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
Okay. Right. So okay. So welcome to our presentations. We are from Host University Kokusai High School. For me, actually, this is my first time for me to attend a JALT workshop. So I'm so great to have this great opportunity. And I am now Jimbo, and he's Alex. We worked together last year to learn this course, Laughter and Humor. So actually, we are working at the Host University Kokusai High School, which is at Yokohama, private high school attached with university, Host University. This course is designed to learn about how to make and perform comedy skit in English. First, okay, sorry. Okay, let me talk about today's slideshow in order. At the beginning, I'd like to talk about the background and teaching context of our school. And then we will show you some parts of our course syllabus. Next, we will introduce our lesson procedure, focusing on teaching humor techniques and teaching drama and stage skills. And lastly, outcomes. What students learn through this course, such as knowledge about laughter and humor, language development, language skills, critical and creative thinking, and also will introduce about practical applications for other school teachers as well. And first, please talk about background of our students, Alex.
Okay, so this was, of course, 34 students in all, but we were lucky enough to be able to split these into two groups. So working with about 16, 17 students at the time in the class. Second year of high school, and this was an elective course, mix of genders, although this was a few years ago a girls' school, so predominantly female students. Mix of levels, some quite low level, some returnee students, so quite a range of abilities. On average, around akin to level A2 of the SEFRA. Jimbo, can you tell us about the goals of the course?
Right. So next, I will share about some main goals and our service a bit. So in our service, we show the students our main goal. The purpose of opening this course is to develop your creativity, critical thinking, and cooperative attitude, which we call the CCC approach. In order to develop these skills, you are going to experience various kinds of lessons such as discourse analysis, discovery activity, reflection paper, and skit performance. So in addition, we set 5 skills and affective goals here, and which were shown to the students at the beginning of this course. So in our school, these 5 goals are written in our school policy made for developing thinking skills, research skills, social skill, communication skill, and self-management skill. In more detail, specific goals are clarified on our syllabus, such as through taking this course, you'll be able to acquire following skills. So for example, you'll be able to write a reflection on your performance for 300 words in IBC style essay, which is included as a thinking skills. Also, you'll be able to learn the structure of the drama, movie, comedy show, which is described as a research skill. So not only these specific goals for skills, but also we set some affective goals as well, such as social, communication, and self-management skills. For example, you'll be able to understand the feeling of others, especially why people laugh, which is categorized as social skills. And I will explain how we encourage those skills to the students as well. So also, you'll be able to develop your metacognitive skill by organizing your skit, self-management skill. So in our class, in order to make skit, they decide the theme, brainstorm and write their scripts and rehearse and perform the skit. So they have to organize these to do by themselves by the presentation day. Also, so there's some evaluation format which we have made before go on to the class. So here is the evaluation items in first semester. So class work, completion of the work in class for 10%. Also reflection paper. reflection paper on the review of movie or comedy show to learn about development of a story. Every time in my class, I assign them to watch some comedy or movies, and in the next class, they have to write about their impression of the comedy or some movies, so that they learn about how those comedies are developed or structured. And also, in terms of skit performance, mostly this class is evaluated based on their performance. In second semester, they perform their original skit with their partner for 4 to 5 minutes in English. So on this stage, they have to perform it with their partner just for 4 or 5 minutes. But as the term goes on or semester goes on, they have to perform it in the longer minutes with the larger members. So here's the second semester evaluation items. So we sometimes go to the theater. We go to the Lumine Yoshimoto, which is a comedy theater and a very famous comedy theater, which is run by Yoshimoto Agency. And they go to those theaters and learn about the techniques of laughter by going there. So unlike the movies or watching YouTube videos, they can experience a real comedy by going to theater. So, but after that, they have to also write a reflection paper, how they felt and how those comedies were structured. And that was included as evaluation as well. And like I said, this class is mostly evaluated based on their performance in third semester and fourth semester, in total 70%. Most of the evaluation is based on their performance. But in the second semester, they perform their original skit for up to 10 minutes with the four students. Compared to the first semester, the duration of the comedy is quite longer and member of groups are larger from pair to four member of students. Okay, so now please introduce about your class, Alex.
Okay, so across the year, we looked at quite a range of techniques for drama. Can I get myself on the screen here? Okay, it doesn't matter. These are ideas mostly taken from improv. The basic one is initiations. This is one that if you take in the improv classes, you will do every time to some degree. And it's a really good way of making this kind of course open to any level of students, because the initiation could be in a shop, in a supermarket with almost no language going on, or it could be a business meeting, or it could be anything at all when you open it up to the possible higher levels. But the point is that students get straight in there. They don't have time to think about it. They don't have time to try and memorize a script, which would limit the way they're communicating. And this is something you could bring into any class at all. And that's why it's one of the ones I picked up here to talk about. The next, and this is a central one to all improv comedy, all improv theater, and it's the idea of yes and. It sounds really simple, and when you try it with students, they'll pick up on the idea quite quickly. But getting it right and getting it good takes a lot of practice, because you really have to listen to the person that you're performing alongside. What you get a lot when people are starting off is they're trying to do yes and, but they're only really building on their own idea, and they're not really listening to what's been added by their partner. So this is all about listening carefully. It's about constructing meaning between two people. And as such, it really can be a really strong core to language teaching. The final one I want to comment on is actually maybe a full lesson, or it could be maybe 2 or 3 classes in a row. I call it director's cut. It's one that's commonly used in improv theater. And what happens is you have one student directing a scene from their own life. Now, they're not acting themselves, someone else is acting them. And then they are directing what happens in a situation that really happened to them in their life. There's no script written down, there can be notes, and therefore you get a whole scene in one lesson period. I've had this from start of class, 90 minutes, and they've done the performances by the end of the class. No script, all of it working live. The direction can be in Japanese, but the performance is in English. So you get all this interplay of what's going on. Oh, we've got a question here. Sorry, let me just go back to the comment here.
Yes, and can you give an example? I'm not sure what you mean by yes and.
So the way this works is you set a simple scene. Like I did this recently with a class, and we started with some prompts like in the forest. And the first student
Mhm.
begins to tell the story. So here we are in the forest, and I can hear the birds singing. The next performer, the next person in that group goes, yes, I can hear the birds singing, and I can see a rabbit underneath that tree. And so with each step, the student brings in another idea, always adding to and including all of the previous ideas. And so it builds, and it can build into a very, very complex story from something very simple, or it can just build with what the students are able to do. So it's completely down to their abilities. Great.
Mhm.
So yeah, these are just three ideas from improv. We also use some things from drama in general, how to use props, how to use air objects rather than pretending to that your hand is a gun, holding it like it's a gun, things like that. Um, there's a lot of possibility there. If you'd like more ideas of that, please get in touch with us. Let's pass on to Jimbo-san. Can you tell us about the teaching of humor techniques now?
Right. So like Alex mentioned in his class, mostly he focused on the body movements of the students, but while my class is focusing on learning about techniques of laughter. Okay, here's my point. This is the basic cycle to learn about laughter techniques. So cycle one, learning watch some examples. So task one, this is the individual task. Students watch comedy skit and answer the questions provided, which is to describe the flow of the story to make sure the comprehension of the skit. In this activity, before check their answers, students share their answers with their partner to make sure they understand the full story. And after that, discovery activity, find out techniques that example comedies used. Students write things they found interesting and share it with their partner, talking about specific scenes they thought funny and why they are funny for them. At this point, students realize that each of them has a different viewpoint about the things they thought funny. Then go up to group work. Based on the things they found funny, students try to find out what kind of techniques they used in those things. Students have this book called Ukeru Gitsu. So this is a Japanese language book. This is literally translated as a techniques of laughter. In this book, variety of laughter techniques are introduced and named and introduced with examples. At this point, students realize that comedians use a variety of techniques on purpose. And next task cycle, applications. So making use of the finding techniques makes their original conversations. After understanding the techniques of laughter, they make their original conversation with a partner. For example, some cartoons are provided without any scripts. Students fill in the blanks of conversations with laughter techniques and present it with other students. And like fill in the blanks in the cartoon below and create your original story using the techniques you have learned in today's lesson. You have to make two different stories in Japanese languages and English. At first, in my classes, I used some Japanese language for them to understand what the humor is and what kind of techniques they used. And after that, they applicate it into English. So because laughter is a quite difficult metacognitive activity for some students, even in Japanese. First, they understand the concept of laughter in their first languages. After that, they, they apply it for their target languages in English, which I used it as approach. And the last one, reflection task. Write things they found through the lessons. Students look back on the things they have learned in the lesson of the day and will learn about things they found and summarize it and submit it to me. And give them some feedback comments as well. So this is kind of my basic task cycle from beginning to the end in my lessons. So we work as a teams. In Alex's class, they learn about body actions, while in my class, they learn about techniques and development of story. So we take lessons in turn, and taking some turns of his class and my class, students got basic knowledge of body movement and techniques of laughter. Then they will make their original skits by themselves. Like I mentioned before, in the first and second semester, they perform it just for 4 minutes with their partners. Sorry, I got a comment. 10 minutes remaining. Okay, thank you. And but as the time goes on, they are able to 8 to 10 minutes skits with 4 students in English. Okay. Sorry. So this is specific idea of my class. And lastly, let me talk about outcomes. So students' outcome summary is underlined here. So first, proceduralization and consciousness raising about laughter. Learning techniques of laughter by the laughter technique books. Also, they went to the theater to learn about techniques of laughter and also watch some comedies. Sometimes it's in Japanese languages, sometimes it's in English languages. And here's a low comment from, here's a reflection comment from students. I was surprised that there are so many techniques of laughter. And also another comment about coherency and structure development. They went to the Yoshimoto Luminous Theater to watch a comedy. They learned how to develop the story. Here's a comment from students. I changed the way of thinking and owarai comedy. I was impressed when I watched Luminous Yoshimoto first time. Comedians use a lot of techniques that I learned in classes. So students learn about the techniques in class, and then they will go to the theater to make sure that those techniques were truly used by the professional comedians, and they are so sure about it after they watched it. Okay, that's the impression from students. So now, Alex, please talk about your comments as well, outcomes.
This was one of the really interesting things about the course, that we had our own outcomes that we were assessing. But some of the most interesting things came from the reflections the students wrote. And they were in some ways incidental to what we were actually teaching or telling them to do. One thing that was very clear all the way through was that their voice skills and their pronunciation were changing over the year. The first performances they were doing, often it was difficult to hear them, and there were pronunciation errors we couldn't really follow. They saw that that was something they had to fix if anything else was going to work in their performances. And that by the end of the year, we didn't have anyone who was speaking in a low voice who couldn't be heard in their performance. The pragmatic transfer was interesting. We were telling them to keep things simple and natural, because that's where the humor comes from much more easily than kind of zany scenes. And one of the comments we got from the reflections was that these things are useful for daily conversations. So although we were doing these things about laughter techniques, humor techniques, drama, they could see that they could actually apply what they were doing to their daily life. The motivation and individual development was interesting. At the start of the year, the humor that they felt they could express was largely down to dance, music, slapstick, physical humor. What we saw over the year, as we were encouraging this through teaching them about techniques and through thinking about how you express humor through language, was much more language-based humor. The general motivation was interesting as well. This comment came about 3/4 of the way through the year. I lost sight of the essence of the play. I learned that it was important for me to have fun. So they'd started off with a slapstick and just fooling around a bit on stage. They got very, very serious about it. And then they came around the full circle and realized that it was about combining that. And so there was a lot of this interesting area of, from having extensive feedback and reflections from the students about what they felt about what they were doing, really gave us an interesting insight about what they were really learning from the course. Could you put the next slide on, Jimbo? Thank you. So the critical and creative thinking was a very, very important part of it. They were thinking about their own creative processes. There were lots of questions as they went through. How do we come up with good ideas? We weren't giving them much in the way of prompts for what to do with their skits. So we might give them a set of cards with some objects they had to use, or we might give them a starting place like family in the kitchen. And they had to come up with their performance based on those simple ideas. They had to work with people they didn't know. And it's quite scary going in for something like humor where you have to expose your ideas. And so they had to find out how to cooperate with each other. And they had to figure out what to do if they got stuck. they didn't have time to wait a couple of weeks because the performances were quite frequent. We also got really interesting responses from when they went to watch the Luminaire shows. At the start, they were just describing what they were seeing. They were quite in awe of the performances. By the end of the year, we had some people saying things like, honestly, I got bored of it, so I thought they should switch to another joke. They were able to criticize the professional performers and to step away from it and go, okay, what do I think about this humor? In relation to that, they could notice the comedians were reacting to the audience and adapting to the audience. So they saw that actually, if they didn't really like the joke, maybe they were looking around and seeing the audience was mostly children and children's mothers, and the jokes were being aimed at them rather than the high school students. And they could recognize the subtlety of that. And the other subtlety that they were talking about was they preferred the realistic scenes to things that were too off the wall, too crazy, because they felt a more natural humor was coming out of that. All of this is interesting. We were lucky because we could have this whole course based around laughter and humor. And it's run for a few years now. Jimbo-san ran it by himself the first couple of years, and then I joined him last year. If you have a chance to do a course like this, it will work. It really can be successful. The students, there's an idea that Japanese students won't do this kind of thing. They will. If you're ready to go for it with them, they really will dive into it and enjoy it. But we're aware that in many cases, it's not possible to have a full course like this. But you can bring these ideas into almost any course. In our English Expression 1 first year course, we have a 3-lesson project called a Reader's Theatre, which brings in many of the ideas we're talking about here. Things like yes and or initiations could easily be part of normal class procedure. Whatever topic you're talking about, you could bring that in with some kind of role play or some kind of activity for brainstorming. And yes and is perfect for brainstorming. You can also bring in one-off lessons, things like the director's cut. If students are used to performing, you can do that in one lesson. If they need a bit more help, then if they haven't done it so much, maybe 2 lessons. But you can bring it in. All these ideas can be brought into normal English language courses. Jimbo-san, can you finish us off then?
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Alex, for summarizing your comment for practical applications. So, like he said, Japanese students are rather shy to speak out, especially in English languages. In this course, it was too. But however, as they get used to the performance many times in class, they have become confident enough to perform skits. So I was so happy to see the development of language skills, but not only language development, but also showing their attitude towards more positive way to speak out English. So if you have any questions, comments, or requests for materials, references, we are willing to share it with you. So please email us at these emails, myself or Alex as well. Okay, thanks for listening to our presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Okay, that's all.
Do we have time for any questions or comments at the end, Ryan?
I think we used up. Oh, 1 minute, just 1 minute.
If anyone would like to unmute to ask a question or send a question in comments, we'd be happy to try and answer.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, do we have some comments there?
Right.
Yes, we've got a few comments coming in. Can you see them, Jimbo-san?
Thank you for a fantastic session. Would love to try some of these ideas with my schoolers. Oh, thanks for your comment. Yeah, definitely. We are willing to share materials with you, so please don't hesitate to send your emails to me or to us, or Alex or me. We are happy to share it with you. Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, I think time is up.